Welcome to the Digital Marketing Mentor. I'm your host, Danny Gavin, and together with industry leaders and marketing experts, we'll explore the meeting point of mentorship and marketing. We'll discover how these connections have affected careers, marketing strategies, and lives. Now get ready to get human. Hello, everyone. I am Danny Gavin, and I'm the founder of Optage and a marketing professor and the host of the Digital Marketing Mentor. I'm so excited to have one of my colleagues here today, Terri Hoffman, who's the founder and CEO of Marketing Refresh. Marketing Refresh is a digital marketing agency that specializes in B2B lead generation programs for engineering, construction services, and manufacturing companies. Marketing Refresh has seen success transitioning companies from utilizing purely traditional marketing to include digital marketing to bring in more business. And they've won several awards from Clutch, UpCity, AMA Houston. Although Terri is technically a competitor of mine, but really I look at Terri as an equal and a colleague and just a sister from another mother. So Terri, it's so nice to have you here today.
I love how you put that. Thank you, Danny. It's great to be here.
Let's talk a little bit about your educational and work background. So where did you go to school and what did you study?
I went to Michigan Tech University, which is in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, right on Lake Superior. So it's like a different world from Houston completely. I went to school originally to be an engineer, and I played basketball in college, and they had a really good basketball team. So that was really my main reason for going there, was to play basketball and to become an engineer. And I quickly realized very fast that I was better suited for the business school. I was not prepared for the rigor of an engineering degree. So I got into their business school and graduated with a marketing degree. That school got 350 inches of snow per year. The whole first story of your house would snow in. So it was quite an experience to go to school there. I loved it. People are just very down to earth and super fun. And they do actually have a great marketing program. It's more focused on analytics and statistics since it's a big engineering school. So I really valued that angle of the curriculum that they had at that school.
Let's go in a little bit to playing basketball, because playing basketball for 4 years, and I know you were the captain of the team during your senior year. I mean, I feel like it gave you so much to why you are who you are today.
Oh, yeah, 100%. So people, if they knew this about me when I was growing up, would probably kind of laugh, but I was really kind of the annoying kid that always had a basketball with them. I carried it with me everywhere. I had it at the dinner table. I dribbled it nonstop. I was 100% obsessed with basketball, and all I wanted to do was play basketball in college from, age 4 or 5. And so I was out in the driveway in the middle of the winter every single day playing basketball. It was an obsession, probably maybe at times a bit unhealthy obsession, but I loved it. And the second our last game was played, I was done. And it's not even really something that I talk about a lot, but I am still very into athletics and sports. I was really fortunate and played on a good team. We went to the Final Four one year. So we were very competitive. And the coach I played for was amazing. He taught me, he was truly, aside from my parents, my first mentor, and really taught me a lot about teamwork and accountability, primarily. Like so many lessons that really helped me in running my business, I learned from him and was taught through my experience with my teammates. So
how was that Final Four run? I mean, was it like, when you look back, does it feel like a dream?
Yeah, it was really, it does. It's really fun. I still keep in really good touch with my teammates. We're all to the point now where we have kids. Some of us even have grandkids, not myself, but some of my teammates do. And so they're lifelong friendships and, really strong bonds. We spent so much time together, and, obviously we weren't in the military saving lives, but the type of training you go through and the way that you have to count on each other is analogous. And you really, know each other inside out and backwards. And still to this day, I could see any of them. And, within 30 seconds, we pick right back off where we left off, because we just, at that formative age, when you're going through college and in that age range, we really made deep connections with each other. It's fun to still keep in touch with all of them.
Do you feel like you ever, or when you're running your agency, you kind of had that expectations of oh my gosh, this is like a college basketball team?
I do. I get a little intense, and it comes from that experience that, that formed a lot of the habits that I have as an adult playing on that team. And kind of learning the systems that our coach and assistant coaches put into place, you also end up getting mentored by the older people on the team and the expectations they set as standards. And so I do very often look at running my company as running a team, and I'm the head coach. And, I have to be careful because not everybody comes up with experience in athletics. But I do lean on sports analogies quite a bit. And I have to be mindful to kind of broaden out those analogies into other areas. We have people on our team who are into theater, which I think any type of group participation where you have to learn how to work with others, whether that's band or orchestra or theater, so many others that I'm not even naming right now. I think anything like that is such a great experience as you're growing up to really learn what it's like to be part of society or a company or any type of team atmosphere.
Yeah, I agree. And I know, like, with my experience with the, graduate school at Bauer, I mean, so much of the work is group projects. And I would say it's more group than individual, but it makes sense because I feel like that's a lot with how we get work done these days, no matter like what industry that you're doing. It's a lot of it is group work. And if you can't work on a team, it's going to be difficult to be successful.
Right. Yeah. Respect and accountability are, they're everything in life, especially on a team. And those are the two biggest takeaways that I had from my experience playing college basketball is you learn how to respect other people's skills, understand, what their role is, you're understanding your own role and kind of respecting that about yourself and knowing what your contribution is and then being accountable.
All right, let's jump into mentorship. So how do you define a mentor?
To me, mentorship is about having someone who kind of has more knowledge and experience in an area than you do, who you can, go to seek advice and counseling and really have an ability to be vulnerable and transparent with that person, also without a risk of feeling judged. And I think mentorship is also a place where you may receive some, tough love or hear things that you need to hear, even though you may not be prepared to hear them or want to hear them. I think mentorship is about growing ultimately.
Yeah, so it's not always like butterflies and rainbows. But
Right. I think if it's working well, it can't always be about those things. Yeah. Sometimes you may need encouragement, but sometimes you may need to hear the harsh reality of something that you need to improve on or an action you need to take that won't be comfortable.
do you feel like there are any traits that you would avoid in a mentor? Like if you saw that, I'm like, I don't want them to be my mentor.
I would say, yeah, one would be like a lack of emotional stability would be a big one. I don't think you want a gut reaction from a mentor. You want listening. I think a mentor shouldn't be talking more than the mentee. They should be listening more and waiting for that moment to either ask more questions, to get more information, or to provide, that meaningful advice that the mentee needs to hear.
So let's talk about your mentors in your life. Did you intentionally find a mentor, or even now? Or is it something that you think developed naturally for you?
I think it developed naturally for me. I did not intentionally seek them out. I mean, like I mentioned, my basketball coach in college was my first mentor outside of my family. And that was not really necessarily intentional. I was expecting to learn basketball from him. I wasn't expecting to get, major life lessons necessarily from him. And I really got pushed way outside of my comfort zone by him as well. And then I would say, as I progressed into my career, just on the professional mentorship side, I was really lucky. The very first job I got an opportunity to work for a woman who had been in that industry for 30 years. And she was my first, professional workplace mentor. And then it just sort of naturally, the next one would sort of fall into place as the last one moved on or, left my life for a variety of reasons.
So let's dig down a little bit into some of those mentors. So let's talk about your first job. I'm sure you learned so much, but are there some points that stick out where like, wow, thank God I had that experience, or thank God I learned that thing?
I would say my first mentor was Brenda Tinnin. I worked for the Houston Rockets, and she was kind of that person who traveled across the country and helped to open new arenas or, fix situations that didn't have good systems in place. She would get hired and they would move her across the country to really put a good framework in place. I would say a big takeaway that I got from her was patience. I was not a patient person. That's something that is I have to be very intentional about. I'm a go, go, go. What's my checklist? Let me go check it off. I'm a very driven person that I think a lot of entrepreneurs are. And so she taught me to be more patient and mindful and just kind of taking information in and slowing down before you take action on it so that you're just not reacting and you're really making sure that you've thought through different possibilities before you take action.
Yeah, patience is so important, but it's hard, right? I know myself, like you sometimes are going and then you're like, but you have like that warning sign in your head, like, this is a time where I need to slow down.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Let's talk about your parents a bit. You mentioned they're also been mentors in your life.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my dad was a middle school counselor and he's just an unbelievable listener. I'll gush over my parents because I think very highly of them. I'm really lucky. I was born with great parents. He is just like always at every event. My dad actually played college basketball and tennis. So he's, definitely paved the way in our family for athletics and athletic participation. He could have told me probably 10 things after every game I played, what I did wrong and what I needed to improve. My dad never said a word to me. He just would give me a hug after the game, tell me great job. He was very supportive and encouraging, very hardworking. He was the dad who packed his lunch the night before at work and laid it out in the same spot every day. He was like very schedule driven. I don't ever recall him missing a day of work. I can't think of one. So he definitely, through his actions, also taught me just a lot about responsibility and support, being a supportive person. My mom is the opposite end of the spectrum. My mom is the tough love parent. So my mom was a pediatric nursing professor. I don't know. I was the fourth of four of their kids, the baby of the family. And my mom got her master's degree in nursing to become a professor when I was, I think, in grade school. So I think about that now, and I cannot believe my mom, took care of us, had a full-time job, and got her master's degree all while, parenting and running a household. I also recall my mom being present and being there, helping me with my homework, driving me to different events and things going on. But, like an example of my mom would be before a big high school basketball game, my dad would come give me a big hug, like, you're going to do great tonight. I'm so excited to come to your game. And my mom would say, I heard the girl on the other team's really good. So I hope you're ready for her. The girl you're guarding is like had a big write up in the paper. So you better get your act together and really be ready for her. She was the one to give you the dose of reality to be prepared and didn't do a lot of coddling at all. She got us ready for life. My dad emotionally got us ready for life.
But it's so nice you have both aspects, right? Because I feel
Right.
like you need a little bit of both.
Absolutely. We, as kids, knew who to go to at different times. We learned that very quickly. So they almost kind of like, without designing it, helped us understand when mentorship was needed and how to go seek it and the appropriate places when, you kind of knew like I'm slacking a little. I better go ask my mom. And because I know my mom is going to give me that kick I need to get back into action. And when I'm just sad, then I know I go to my dad and he's going to give me a hug and everything's going to be better. Yeah.
And as a parent, how do you feel? Are you more like your mom or dad?
Oh, I'm way more like my dad. Way more like my dad. Yeah. I have to work on, well, I also am married and I would say my husband is more similar to my mom. If we were going to like simplify things and look at it that way, we're probably in those roles. No, I'm the more sentimental, gushy, warm-hearted person who will give you that support and encouragement you need for sure.
I'm sure that helps a lot when running a team.
Yeah, I think so, especially in today's times. I mean, the world is a tough place to navigate, and I think you have to be mindful of that when you run and own a company. The work environment is different than it was when I entered the workforce, and more kindness and support and understanding and compassion is needed, especially when you have driven people who want to perform well and their intention is to wake up every day and do a good job. When life happens to them, yeah, they need compassion and support.
So true, because the olden days of being rough and tough, like that corporate cutthroat feel, people these days don't respond to that. And I feel like when they are in an environment like that, they run away.
I agree. I just don't think it works in today's world. That's just not how our culture operates. And I don't think, yeah, people do not respond well to that. I wouldn't respond well to that if I was managed that way anymore. You didn't have a choice before. That was how it worked. And so you had to figure out how to swim in that sea.
Let's move on to your first clients that you ever had, Kelly
Mhm.
McAndrew and Tim Self. It seems like they left a pretty big imprint on you, and when it comes to being impactful mentors, but interesting from the client perspective.
Yeah, definitely. There, and I would still consider them mentors today, although, I don't talk to them as frequently as I have in the past. They were an interesting first mentor in that they were also my client and they taught me an extremely valuable lesson. So, as I mentioned, I learned accountability playing college basketball, but that was self accountability. What I hadn't learned until I got them as clients was how to hold your team accountable and how to make sure that as a group and as a company, the accountability was consistent and coming through. And Tim told me something that I still use all the time with my kids and with employees, which is, one of the main keys to being effective in the business world is just doing what you have told someone you're going to do. He said, I know that sounds very minimum and bare and doesn't really sound like it would add a lot of value. But, if you at a minimum just do what you told somebody you're going to do, that is going to build trust. It's going to show that you have integrity, and ultimately, people will know that they can count on you when they need work done. I think it also bled into me understanding how to set expectations with clients and how to manage expectations because it connects directly together with that. You instead of saying what you think you could personally do, you have to think through like, okay, I have a team, we have schedules, we have multiple clients, there's a lot operating here, and I want to make sure I'm setting reasonable expectations about what this client can achieve with us so that we're being accountable to them and they're getting good value in the money that they're paying our agency. So they taught me that because I made a mistake. And I mean, honestly, they were kind enough in my eyes to have that conversation with me and mentor me in that moment because they wanted me to be successful and they wanted my company to be successful. So they took the time to have that conversation and really give me tough love and give me an opportunity to rectify it. But they probably could have moved on at that point, and I would never have gotten the value of learning that lesson.
What a special gift, right? To
Yeah.
have those types of people.
Yeah. And even at the time, I remember my husband saying that to me. You're really lucky that you found them as clients and that they took the time to do that. You're really fortunate. Those are the kinds of breaks and relationships you need when you're starting and growing a business because it's so hard and it requires so many skills that you don't realize you have to have. You need some kindness and generosity more than once, really, and you need to catch some breaks to be like direct about it. You need to catch some breaks.
Because we're all going to make mistakes. So it's bound to
Yes.
happen. The question
Yeah.
is, are you going to have the right person at the other end who like understands that and then can, like you said, be kind enough to work with you through it and point out like, you should really do things a little bit different. And I think another so powerful point that you mentioned is I see this with a lot of young marketers. Like they're so quick to say, oh yeah, I'll take care of this and I'll do this and I'll do this. But they don't realize that you have to be very careful what you say you'll do. Because like you said, if you don't do it, that's a problem. So you kind of have to, no one's saying that you should, not do a lot. But as we know, we both know how important the scope is and how important, but I think it's just so true, right? Like you're in a team, whether it's directly to the client or someone else, being so careful and thoughtful about your words and what you're going to commit to, and rather commit to a little bit less than more, because if you do more, that's great. I feel like in some ways, like the overachieving culture is like, oh, I'm going to do more, more, more. But if you set up this huge, situation that you're going to fail at, that's really, really not great.
Just to expand on what you just said, they taught me that it is okay to say, I'm not sure. Let me have some time to talk to my team and I will get back to you. And then when you say when you're going to get back to them at that time. And to expand upon that further, if you would say something like, hey, can this website launch next week? And a totally appropriate answer is, That sounds like a reasonable goal. Let me talk to my team and make sure that everyone in their role is on the same page about what needs to be done. And then I'll get back to you tomorrow. And if you say you're going to get back tomorrow, get back to them tomorrow. And the answer at that point might be there's still 3 or 4 things we're sorting out. It looks likely, but I'm going to have to ask for another day to get back to you before I can commit to that. Once you make that commitment, you need to treat it, in a precious way. Like that is a commitment, no matter how small that commitment is or how large that commitment is. That builds the trust and builds the accountability. So don't commit to it until you feel fully in it.
Okay, let's now switch to you as the mentor. Obviously, running an agency, you have younger employees. Who do you mentor currently, and how do you do it?
I think in a way, I mentor each one of my employees. I hope that they would look at it that way. So I have one-on-one coaching calls every other week with every employee. Of course, we're going through some of the work we have, but we also use that as an opportunity to talk through places where they're challenged, places where they may need more support. And that's I do understand how incredibly difficult that is when you're mentored by your actual boss. It's pretty tough to break down those walls and feel like it's okay to be in a position of being vulnerable and talking about areas where you're having trouble. And that might be personally or professionally. It feels to me, and my assessment is that it is hard for most of them at times, but for the most part, I do think they all find their moments where they feel safe, enough to tell me. If they don't, then I do think there are 2 other key leaders on our team that I might help spark them asking the question, but they're not necessarily ready to ask me. And they have 2 other people that they feel safe going to, that they can ask those questions to and look for the guidance and support from them. And so I think, just by coaching the other 2 leaders in our company over the years, we've gotten to the point where they're now prepared to do that same type of mentorship and leadership outside. I also have several nieces and nephews who have chosen to go into the field of marketing. Like I just got a text from one of them yesterday. She's about to graduate and she was asking me if I would, have a meeting with her to talk about the direction she wants to take so she can get some advice from me. She's not quite sure where to begin. And that's something that I offer to people all the time. Anytime I have a friend or a colleague or somebody from a professional or personal setting who has a family member or friend or son or daughter going into marketing, I love to give them advice and give them an hour of my time to just kind of talk through what direction they want to go. I think our field is huge, and I think it's also becoming and has become very specialized. And so just understanding people's drivers and what they're interested in, because I've got a lot of experience in the marketing world, I can give them like, this is something you should look into, or why don't you join your local AMA chapter and start going to the educational events? Or, there's just different ways that I could guide them or direct them to go so that they can start to learn a little bit more for themselves, an area that they may want to go into and try.
I think us, like both being marketers, we wish that we had like that aunt or uncle who was like the marketer.
Yeah, absolutely. We did it. I'm assuming with that comment, you did it the way I did it. You just got in and, figured it out through the school of hard knocks and eventually got there.
I mean, look, there were some people in my life, not necessarily family members, but, people to look up to. So I think we all have like those North Stars. But yeah, imagine if you had like, an aunt or an uncle who was had an agency and, like I think your nieces and nephews and your daughters are very lucky to have you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I also have a small business owner who it's a business owned by a husband and wife. I'm actually not going to say his name because, well, you know who he is, I believe. Just to protect his and respect him and his wife, I'm not going to mention their name on the show, but that has been a very special relationship for me. I feel that I have learned probably more from them than they have learned from me. So I'm not sure who's mentoring who in that situation. That has been important to me to try to help them. They're not in a family situation or life situation where they have that aunt or uncle, who can step in and give them that guidance and support. And so that's been like really gratifying and rewarding for me to be able to just come in and make sure that no one's taking advantage of them. Also that they're not missing something large, and they're so smart and capable and so great at what they do. I also don't know if they really needed my mentorship, but I just was worried that they were in a life position that they could easily have been taken advantage of. And I didn't want to see that happen because I really respect them and like them and I want to see them succeed.
That's amazing. Do you feel like you would go more into that arena? Meaning, I know you have like your niche specifically from the agency perspective,
Hmm.
but like, how do you feel with, some of this small business consulting, or just would you want that to be more of what you do? Or
Yes, definitely. I would love to do that. So I turned actually exactly a month ago today, I turned 50. So I do have to start thinking about, life beyond marketing refresh. And that's definitely something that I'm interested in. I just know that's a big part of my personality is I like to help people. Sometimes people just, especially as a small business owner, you really just need a lot of encouragement and support. There are so many days that you want to give up and throw your hands up in frustration because every time you think you have run in to the last big issue you're going to face, the sun rises again and you hit a brand new one that you didn't see coming and is, a surprise. And I think it can get frustrating. It feels defeating. And it's so important for other small business owners to have a network of people that they can go to get, just encouragement. And sometimes it's emotional and sometimes it's okay, I know exactly what's going on. You should look into this particular tool, or here's some training that I think would really help you. So sometimes it's very tangible and practical.
and I think with people like you, so small businesses and businesses in general can get good advice and have that right mentor in their life in order to move forward. And I think it's important to like let people know that, sometimes the reason that people don't want to start a business is because like, how am I going to do this all on my own? But I feel like, I'm not saying everyone has this, but most of us have these people in our lives that we can turn to and speak with. And, maybe it's not as difficult to do just by having a conversation with someone and getting some advice.
You're not asking the question, but you're hitting on something that I think is an important component of mentorship when you're starting a business that I wish, turning the clock back, I wish I had really made sure that I intentionally set up a good support network for myself. It has to be more than your spouse or your significant other or slash partner in life. You really need to not try to make that one of your key business support people. That should, that person is your partner in life and should be there in any of your situations, obviously. But it's really hard for that person to be a business support unless they're your partner in the business also. Most spouses, I think, most of the time would say, "Why are you doing this? Please stop and just go get a regular job," because it's so time consuming and draws a lot of your emotional energy to run a business. It's really, really tough.
Yeah, and it's funny because both my wife and I, both of our parents work together in their businesses. So,
Oh, I didn't
um,
know that your wife had those parents too. Okay, cool.
yeah, exactly. So, like, we both know, like, there's pros and cons,
Uh-huh.
definitely, but we know what the cons are, and it's like, nah, we don't want to work together. So I know that I know that like it's the fine line between having the spouse as like that support in the business, but then like you said, they may not be as objective about it, and therefore you
Right.
really do need someone else to talk to when it comes to
You, you
the
do. It
business.
can be, and it can be balanced, that I definitely count on my husband a lot for advice and emotional support and to be another set of eyes and a mirror to myself that, sometimes it's hard to see weaknesses in yourself or things that you might be missing that your spouse can point out to you because they know you inside out and backwards. But I think it's also nice to have that set of, people that you're not emotionally connected to in that way who can look at things for you. There's so many organizations and groups out there that you can join so that it's more of a structured process. And then there are, of course, just look at your LinkedIn network and find people from different points in your career who can help you in the same way.
All right, let's now move more into marketing
Hmm.
and talk more about Marketing Refresh. So Marketing Refresh offers a variety of digital marketing services, including SEO, PPC, websites, content marketing. We spoke a little bit about how you love the auditing and coming up with the digital strategy for businesses. Why do you like that so much?
I think it's fun because it's so creative. And one of the reasons I love marketing is because you're constantly learning. You're either learning about a new marketing tactic or changes to a particular channel that we lean on and how that can be best leveraged for a business, or you're learning about people who started a business and run a business, or you're learning about services and products that drive revenue for a business. So you're constantly and continuously learning, and that never stops. And I think that's so fun to see, how that all ties together and helps people. So auditing is really just a means to learn. You're gathering a lot of information and then going over all of it with a fine tooth comb to see where there are areas for improvement, where there are gaps between your client and competitors, and where there are great things happening that need to be further magnified. It gives you it's really a springboard to learning and seeing what's working and what's not working and what needs to be improved.
It's interesting. I find this, I'm sure you do as well. Like there's certain clients where it's like, no, we just want to get started. Like what? We got to pay for an audit. We've got to, what's going on? So,
Right.
but there's all that value, right? And sometimes people don't necessarily see it and understand why it needs to be done in the beginning.
And so that triggered a thought that ties back to Tim Self and Kelly McAndrew, two of my mentors. They use a phrase a lot that they taught me, which is ready, aim, 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 fire. Don't ready, fire, aim. And so that's something I reinforce. Like you're going to spend a lot of money over time on your marketing program. So you really want to make sure you have that we understand what's going on in your environment and that you then put the right strategy together. So take your time, rushing out. There are definitely situations where there's a conference or an event coming up and you've got to get something ready for that particular event. But for the most part, you've got to get ready and aim and aim and aim and aim and aim before you fire and start. It's just more practical. I use that all the time. Kind of ties back to the patience too.
I feel like God gave you such a gift by having those people as your first client.
Yes,
it's so cool.
I totally agree. Yes, I agree. Thank you.
I know Marketing Refresh is, has kind of niched a little bit more down when it comes to construction and more industrial. It seems like you're drawn to helping businesses who have historically relied on exclusively traditional marketing. And now they're, considering branching out to include digital. Why do you feel drawn to, those industries or those types of clients?
There are a couple of reasons I'm drawn to that. Like, first of all, I think that those industries represent so many people that I know in my own personal life. Like, for example, my brother-in-law sells doors to construction companies and engineering firms. He's just one example, right? And I see, how their life grows and expands based on his ability to sell and be effective at his job. And so personally, it kind of starts there for me. And I know that if we can help companies in those industries who are really driving the overall economy in the country, construction is one of the industries that you look at as an economic indicator. When those industries are healthy and operating well and being effective, that then rolls over into so many other jobs and job creation for other people in the country. So that was one big reason that we chose that focus. Another is because I own a business and I want my business to be successful. I see a lot of gaps in that industry of companies who have not adopted digital marketing. So I see a big business opportunity to help companies go through that transition and blend together what they're doing now that works so well with things that I know will work well for them in the digital marketing arena. There's so many different things happening with those businesses. They've maybe hired someone and it hasn't gone well. They may have been misguided. They may not have been ready for the advice they were getting. They may not have realized how running Google ads would impact other parts of their business because it doesn't seem like it would, but it does. If you run a Google ads campaign and leads start coming in through the website, where are those leads going? Who's following up? If you suddenly have a big influx of sales, how are you operationally delivering on that? How does that impact who has to service all of that new business? So it ultimately does end up impacting, the entire company and the entire operation when you make that decision. And so I think a lot of companies need guidance on things, that systems they need to have in place, things they need to think through, frameworks they need to have in place while they get that underway. We have so many bad actors in our industry who aren't thinking thoughtfully about all of those other impact areas, and they're just thinking about the fee that they're going to make from running the ads. We try to be more mindful about that. I know you're the same way. You want to be mindful about how I want this to be long-term successful. I don't want you to just get some leads and then I collect my fee and we're all happy and we leave. No, I want this to work. I want you to grow your company. I want you to be able to hire those new salespeople, expand into other areas, or whatever the business goals are. I want those to actually be reached.
Yeah, a good example just that I'm thinking about that I went through recently, and it's not to toot my own horn, but it's just to kind of give an example where it's like we were working with a business, they really wanted to work with us, but it was a small business, and I knew that if our point of contact was the CEO, like nothing would get done. So basically told the guy, like, if you want to hire us, you have to hire an internal person. Like, and it's funny because he was thinking like, okay, I want to hire an agency, but it's like, no, like actually to work with an agency, you're going to need someone internal, whether it's an executive assistant or a marketing assistant, whatever it is. And
Right.
It's interesting. It's been like a couple months now for him to try to find the right person. And
I can completely relate to that. That was really good advice. And it could have cost you that relationship if he didn't agree, but you also knew it would actually cost you the relationship over time, because it is extremely hard to be successful without an accessible point of contact.
right. And so it's like seeing that iceberg. You're on the Titanic, it's coming. It's
Right.
just a matter of time.
Yeah. And there are unfortunately too many people in our business who won't recognize those types of things and won't point them out and won't be patient enough to wait for the answer. But that's why you and I have become friends, is because
Yeah.
I think the more of us who run our agencies and are like minded in that way, it strengthens the whole position of our industry and builds trust. I mean, that's the number one thing any service company has to overcome. And especially in the marketing world, is trust. There's a lot that business owners don't understand about what we do, and they are accustomed to bad experiences, unfortunately. I know you and I are on a mission to retrain people's thinking. We want them to know what a positive relationship looks like and what they should expect from a positive relationship.
And it's great to be in that mission together with you.
Yes, I agree.
What specific challenges do you encounter drawing these types of more archaic, not necessarily businesses, but people who run the business into digital? So like, what are some of those challenges?
Well, definitely the technology. So just the lack of experience and comfort on key platforms. And LinkedIn is probably the biggest one. The phrase that we hear so often, and I'm sure you do too, is I know I should be on LinkedIn, but I've always hated it. So it's actually, as soon as I hear that, I think, yes, you're an optimal client for us. Like, you check that box of a number of boxes that I like to see checked when we take on a client, but because they recognize it's important, but they're not necessarily sure about what they typically don't know what the first step should be, and then want guidance on what the best practices are. How often should I be on LinkedIn? What should I be doing when I'm on LinkedIn? How should I be leveraging it? What should I be looking to get out of it? And that's just one example. I think another example is lack of understanding about how much data we can see. I think that's mind blowing to the companies that we work with when they see, give me a list of keywords. I can show you how many times they're searched. I can show you where you rank for them. I can show you who does rank for them. And then it goes on and on and on. We can get so much more data than they realize we can get, so that we can make data-driven recommendations. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge to overcome, is just having them realize that we're not, we are creative, but we're not what they may think of as the creative types that are just spitballing ideas in a boardroom and coming up with creative campaigns. Yes, we are doing that, but we're doing that based on data and research that's guiding why we're making those decisions. I love digital marketing for that reason. It blends together these two areas that have been challenging in marketing, and a lot of people just don't realize that we can do that, and we have that capability. So those are probably the big challenges. It's just you can tell that they're fearful because of what they don't know. And I think I view part of our job is educating them about what we do know and why we're recommending what we're recommending. So the audit is important. We gather all the information, but then we can connect it back to why we're recommending the strategy and the roadmap that we're recommending. And it should be clear to them after we make those recommendations what steps need to be taken to get them from where they are now to where they're, a company leveraging digital marketing in all the best ways.
And it's funny, I feel like with any interview, those challenges are really the opportunities, right? So, and it's awesome how you're finding those opportunities and leveraging them and helping your business and also helping others, which is so cool. All right, as we start to wrap up, we like to do our lightning round. I would love to know who are the top 3 musicians or albums that you're currently listening to that you want our listeners to know about.
Oh man. Okay, so I'm not gonna like break any mindsets here, but my 3 favorite bands over time have always been U2, love U2, the Beatles, and Pink Floyd, because they
Very
all
cool.
have a very different mood to them, and I love that.
That's awesome. I can definitely relate to the Beatles, although I grew up in the 90s, but it was such a huge part. I think like the first like audio cassettes that I bought with my own money was like were Beatles tapes. So an old soul, but a very big part of my bringing up. And when I just think of some of the songs, it like, reminds me of so many parts of my childhood. So anyone who's a Beatles fan, I can definitely relate to. What does 2023 look like for Terri and for Marketing Refresh? What's the next big thing you're working on?
So I just finished the Goldman Sachs 10K SB program. Subtle plug for that program. Any entrepreneurs who are interested in growing their business, I recommend applying for that program. But basically, I took that course in what they call the fall semester. I just wrapped it up, and I'm going to start implementing my growth strategy, when the new year hits. So I'm really excited. This is our 13th year in business. Essentially I'm trying to reinvent and really breathe new life into our own business strategy and roll out that new B2B focus that we were talking about earlier. Yeah, so it's going to be a building year, for us, and just looking at how we can scale that focus.
I'm sure in the Jewish faith, 13 is like when you have a bar mitzvah. So I want to wish you congratulations on your bar mitzvah.
Well,
and that's
thank
great.
You. That's kind of what it feels like. So I'm going to remember you pointed that out. Maybe this is our bar mitzvah year.
Exactly. So we got to make sure to make a nice party. Okay.
Well, you'll be invited.
All right. Where can listeners learn more about you and your business?
Our website is a great place to start. It's marketingrefresh.com. And then I'm very active on LinkedIn. So, Terri Hoffman, look me up on LinkedIn. You can, I believe, find that link on my bio page from our website as well. Please send me connection requests. Certainly anybody who's looking for some guidance in their marketing career, or if you're an agency owner or a corporate marketer and you're just looking for some guidance, I tell people all the time, I don't do these types of appearances because I'm interested in getting sales or revenue from them. I really want to strengthen our industry. And particularly if there are any women listening to the show, please reach out. I would love to help you. Any type of guidance or mentorship that you're looking for or advice.
Thank you for being such an asset to our community. And thank you for being a guest on the Digital Marketing Mentor. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to the Digital Marketing Mentor. Can't wait to speak to you next time.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you for listening to the Digital Marketing Mentor podcast. Be sure to check us out online at thedmmentor.com and at the DM Mentor on Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts for more Marketing Mentor magic. See you next time.